So Peter Kearns is Vice President of Business Development for 180 Commerce. Peter Kearns has worked for Amazon, building a multi-million-dollar line of business on the Amazon account when he actually worked for Amazon. I think he's going to get into all that here, so I'll just keep reading his slides.
Can you just do the whole thing?
Yeah. I've worked with Peter. With Peter for a number of years. He's probably one of our only. Are you a 4-time speaker? Three-time speaker, and it's been great having him kick off each morning, because having him kick off each morning again is putting you guys in this mindset around building strategies and auditing your business. Because if we don't start with that, then we don't know where to go next. So everybody, Peter Kearns.
Thank you. Thanks, Jeff. Can you guys hear me? Oh, wait. I got to grab this water. Sorry. Got to get my steps in. Stop using single-use plastic. Can you guys hear me? Tyler, we're okay? Okay, good. So today, the next 2 days, a lot of stuff happening, as Jeff went over. And I think, one of the things that's important is when I started pulling this presentation together is, having you guys think differently about your business starting now for the rest of the day and tomorrow. And I kind of think it's important to start with a baseline, a foundation for you to start thinking about your business differently. And so today, I want to talk about being wise, setting a strategy, and then being able to audit your business. So I'm Peter Kearns, VP Business Development, Brand Strategy at 180 Commerce. Why am I up here? I was with Amazon for about 4 years on the Seller Central side. I ran the consumables team. We worked very closely with brands and resellers to grow the catalog selection. Consumables, health and personal care, baby, beauty. I also spent time in soft lines and apparel, also sports and outdoors, and strategic FBA. I did that for about 4 years. Me and my team launched hundreds of brands and resellers responsible for hundreds of millions of dollars. And so all of those things are really important, because we, at Amazon, everything is working from a goal backwards, which I'm going to talk about, but this gives me context in terms of what levers you as a seller should be pulling. For the last 4 years, I've been working with brands, consulting. 180 Commerce, we're a full strategy and brand management agency. We work with all different types of brands, ranging from Crayola and JanSport, to smaller direct-to-consumer startups like Mizzen and Main, to also smaller brands that are zero starts that are just launching on Amazon. So really, we're all in, we can encompass all of them. I am here today and tomorrow. And so if you have questions and you want to talk, not in front of the whole room, feel free to email me. We can set some time up. I'm happy to sit down and talk with you for a couple minutes. And I'm sincere about that. So please feel free. So today, let's establish the baseline. Amazon continues to dominate. 50% of e-commerce in the US is from Amazon. So half of every dollar spent online goes through that portal. The dominance continues to shift in terms of now they are offering 1-day free shipping for Prime members, which is a really big deal. And then 41% of consumers prefer to search and shop on Amazon. So not is it just a shopping engine, but it's also a search engine. So as a brand, it's really, really important that you understand how powerful this place is, and you can't ignore it. Sorry, I forgot one thing. Real quick, how many people in here are a brand, have a brand? Okay, keep your hands up. How many of you are resellers? Any of you? Sorry, I'm doing this out of order. How many of you that are brand owners have the brand registry? You own your intellectual property. Okay, good. So a good amount of you. How many are Vendor Central? Smaller amount. How many are Vendor Central and Seller Central at the same time? Okay, small amount. Okay, so it continues to dominate. We all get that. Challenging though, because it continues to change. As Jeff mentioned, what we're talking about today is very different than what we talked about last year, to what we talked about 2 years ago. What we talk about next year is going to be very different. Some of the things that have come up that I think are really interesting is Amazon forcing brands from Vendor Central to Seller Central. Any of you Vendor Centrals get what I called the pink slip? That day in March where you woke up and you got the notice saying you can no longer sell? and that you moved to sellers. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. And so continuing to change. A new thing that they're doing, which I think is really interesting, is trialing a new service that enlists third-party lawyers to act in patent infringement disputes. So any private label brands, your Born on Amazon brand that you created through Amazon, but it's similar to another product, you need to be prepared that if it's similar enough that Amazon's actually connecting those patent owners with lawyers to pursue intellectual property infringements. So that's a continuous change, always happening. You see what Amazon's doing around, that's awesome. You want to tape it, or shall I just set it down? That's classic. And then, so that's changing. And then keeping up with the bad apples, like fake reviews, all of that stuff. It's really challenging. There was an article that came out a couple of weeks ago that just kind of outlined some of the stuff that is happening in this space that is you, good apples, it's really hard to compete with. Like, how are you supposed to compete with somebody who's handing somebody at Amazon an envelope filled with cash? I mean, that's like, ugh, don't get me started. So the point, though, is that everything is changing. And so in order to succeed on Amazon, brands and resellers must have a strategy to succeed. If you don't have a real strategy, and we're going to talk about that in a minute, you're destined for failure because something will change that will disrupt your business that you won't be prepared for, and you'll be suffering from it. So I talk to a lot of brands, big, little, in between. The one thing that I see, despite how big they are, how old they are, all of them have flawed strategies. And so it's important to recognize what a strategy looks like. So establishing your strategy, the number one priority is you must create goals and work backwards from them. If you don't have that tangible goal, and I'm talking like a number, and being able to work backwards from it. I want to grow sales, and this is how I'm going to do it. So you have to do that. So I encourage you right now, take a minute, hold yourself accountable, look yourself in the mirror and say, do I truly have a goal for my business? And it's a goal that if you were to get hit by a bus and you're paralyzed and you can't speak and you're in the hospital, you have a team that can step in and say, this is our goal and this is how we're working towards it to achieve it. So try to think about your business like that today and tomorrow in terms of how you figure out what your strategy is and what that tangible goal is and how you're working backwards to achieve it. So first thing I always talk about with brands is making sure you have SMART goals, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. It's really important. I talk to a lot of businesses who are like, we want to grow our business and we want to double our sales. I'm like, that's great, but are we going from $1 to $2, or are we going from $1 million to $2 million? So you need to have really, really tangible goals. And for example, I have in 2019, we're going to increase top line sales from 1 million to 1.5 million. It's very specific, it's measurable, you're going from X to Y, it's achievable because it's not a significant, I mean, it's 50% year-over-year growth, but it's not like massive. It's relevant. And it's time-bound. You're going to do it this year. But that goal itself isn't good enough. You have to look at it from a perspective of, okay, I'm going to increase my top-line sales. We're going to increase sessions, the traffic. Jeff brought up traffic. There's conversations later today about traffic. Traffic is really, really important. It's really all we care about, traffic and conversion. So we're going to increase sessions on those ASINs from 15,000 to 25,000 per month by Q2. So now you're getting even more granular. You're increasing your traffic. And the thing about that, it's pretty simple. If you double, say you're getting 100 sessions a month and you've got a 10% conversion, you're selling 10 units a month. If you double your traffic, you're now selling 20 units a month. Pretty simple. But a lot of businesses aren't looking at it from a perspective of this portion of my catalog is going to drive this amount of traffic, which is going to drive this amount of sales, which is going to get me to that 1.5. And then another goal, we're going to increase session conversion. So understanding how your ASINs are actually performing. You're getting traffic, but you're not getting any conversion. So all of this is really important. And so I encourage you to sit down, think about having SMART goals. But where do you start? I had a conversation last night with someone who was just like, where do I start with a strategy? There's so many different things, you know, resellers, content, traffic, price pack architecture, my catalog size, you know, my sales goals, the advertising, the inventory strategy. Where do I begin? and at 180 Commerce, what we do is we talk about e-com readiness. So what we're looking at, basically retail readiness, Amazon readiness, is 5 core components. The first is brand controls, so understanding what things you have that you can control for your brand. The second is content. I think Robin's going to talk about content specifically, so I'm not going to dive into it. But at Amazon, we would talk internally. We had a saying that content is king. It really makes a difference. And I would bet that a lot of you are ignoring your content. The third is traffic. Really, really important. Because at the end of the day, all Amazon is doing is fulfilling a supply and demand. And the traffic is the part that really matters, getting eyeballs onto your products. Then the sales, getting the conversion. And then Amazon programs. So we'll dive into what I'm talking about there in terms of e-com readiness for that. The first thing, brand controls. So the number one most important thing, if you are a brand, you have to have it registered. You have to have the intellectual property. If you don't have your intellectual property, you can email me. I have a really good IP lawyer in Missoula who's not New York rates, so it's better rates. But you absolutely have to have this. There are more and more indications from Amazon in terms of the direction that they're going around having your IP. One of those was that Vendor Central notice that said, you can continue to sell through this year, but you're not brand registered. If you're not brand registered, you're not going to be able to continue selling. More and more is going to be dependent on that IP. So I can't stress that enough. The second thing that brand controls have to do is resellers. And I know a lot of you in here are your own brand, and you may not have resellers right now, but you absolutely have to understand what resellers do to your business. If you are thinking about going omni-channel, so you're on Amazon right now, and you're going to go to brick and mortar. Anyone planning to expand off Amazon this year? Yep, a couple people. You have to understand what that does, is it now opens the door to resellers who can get your product from creative ways of getting inventory. Having resellers on your listing isn't bad, as long as you have a really good strategy around it. And you have to have a map and distribution policy. So if you're gonna go out there and start selling to Walmart or gonna start wholesaling to other people, make sure that you have that map and distribution strategy. And the reseller problem, it's often overlooked and misunderstood in terms of the impact that it has on your business. And if you're selling through Vendor Central and you have resellers on it that aren't holding map, then they're dropping their price. So then Amazon has to drop their price to compete. And then it just becomes this kind of race to the bottom. And the big challenge with that is that if Amazon, and we'll talk a little bit about this later, if Amazon's in a position where they're continuously having to drop price to compete with these resellers, their net PPM, their pure profit margin drops. And what that does is it craps out your ASIN eventually, which is an acronym from Amazon, can't realize a profit, meaning they're no longer going to purchase from you anymore. The other aspect of it, though, is it's now no longer eligible for advertising. So having those uncontrolled resellers can really create this trickle-down effect onto your ASINs that can be really detrimental. The other aspect is once you start going to like Walmart or any of those other places, now you've got this competitive dynamic between Amazon and what they call ICs, image competitors, on pricing. So you've got to understand how all of this plays in terms of having resellers on your product. So map and distribution agreements are key. The other aspect of it is the customer journey. So brand controls, and what I'm specifically talking about here, and this is the second aspect of what I call that e-com readiness, is content. And this is an area that is, unfortunately, by brand owners, often greatly ignored. And you need to think of your customer journey. So they're looking for a product, they're on this path, trying to find what they need to fill their need. and they come along your product. Maybe they come to it from your website, which has amazing content, and maybe they connect with you on social media, and you've got this interaction, you've got this dialogue, this community around your products, and then they're a Prime member. You know, half of the e-commerce dollars go through Amazon, 41% want to search and shop. They have over 100 million Prime members in the US. So maybe they want to go to Amazon first to buy your product, and then they show up on Amazon and your content's broken. You've got old listings, you've got bad titles, and what that does is it allows your competition to swoop in, advertise against it, and take them from this path of your product to this path to their product. And so many times I see brands just forgetting about their content, or they're only kind of half-assing it, if you will. Maybe they've got an optimized title, or they've got a couple of decent products. So what you need to be looking at yourself and asking yourself, gut check, is my content 10% better than my competition? It doesn't need to be perfect, but it needs to be better. If you can, enhanced brand content is important, but don't make excuses, because enhanced brand content is something that started a couple of years ago for third-party sellers. It wasn't always there. You can make really strong, really rich content with a regular old detail page. And the first thing you want to focus on is that thumb-stopping mobile content. And where that comes from is your images. And I think Robin will probably talk about images. Yeah, okay, perfect. So you want to make sure that when you're on a mobile device, because when the content around purchasing the product, the description, the bullet points on a desktop, it's all right there above the fold. On a mobile device, you got to scroll down to get to it. So what you need is really good thumb-stopping content. So you see the first picture, yep, the second picture should be like all about, you know, why this product is so good. And then third, you know, lifestyle shots, all that sort of stuff. So most brands may optimize their product detail page. They may have EBC, but they still have really crappy images. So focus on that, and don't say like, oh, well, I can't optimize my page because I don't have enhanced brand content. It doesn't matter. You can still make really good content on those types of pages. And then the other aspect around content is your catalog. And you really need to be looking at your catalog from a 80-20 rule. You know, 20% of your catalog is driving 80% of your sales. Focus on making sure that the catalog that you have on Amazon is truly representing your brand, and that there's not a lot of rogue ASINs out there. It's not been, you know, you have 10 products, but really you have 40 listings on Amazon because other people have created like bundle packs, those sorts of things. So really make sure that that content is all in this journey. So the consumers, as they go through this, they're getting exactly what they would experience on your website, your social media, and then onto Amazon. The third part, traffic strategy. So just making sure I'm on time. I think I'm cruising. I'm at 10:15, right? Okay, cool. The third part is traffic strategy. So I'm not going to get into specifics around traffic strategy. Ed is going to do that later. I think we got a lot of time devoted to traffic. But as I mentioned earlier, Amazon is just a supply and demand engine. One of the reasons why you have a successful business is because 10 years ago, Amazon launched this marketplace, and existing legacy brands, which had spent millions of dollars creating demand for off Amazon, suddenly were on Amazon. Amazon creates this great tool called Prime, and now consumers can get their products in 2 days from this product that already has demand, and it's this flywheel effect. And so you're basically in the same spot that you have to be doing that. And what you have to recognize is that you have to figure out how to create demand, traffic, people, eyeballs going onto your detail page. And then you've got to get them to purchase it. So understanding that at the core, that traffic strategy is key, because if you're not getting eyeballs onto your pages, you're not going to sell anything. So one aspect of traffic is what we call always-on advertising. It's now table stakes. You absolutely have to be advertising your product all the time. And it's challenging to hear that because that costs money. And it can be significant. And so, but the problem with that is that you have large legacy brands who have massive advertising budgets, and they're just taking that money and shifting it onto Amazon. And so you have to be in a position to recognize how to compete with that so that you're able to continue to get your share of voice, that any kind of competitors who are conquesting against your business, that you're in a position to protect yourselves. The other aspect that you must be looking at are tools like your standalone e-commerce website, Facebook, Instagram, All of those things are tools that help you get more traffic if you are willing to drive the traffic to your Amazon detail pages. And oftentimes I'll talk with a brand who's not interested in doing that. They're like, no way. I am not going to take a Facebook campaign and run it to my Amazon listing. And they think that they have to do that all the time. But really, you don't. If you do it strategically, it should impact the performance of the ACE and create that halo effect where you're seeing a spike in traffic as you're driving it from Facebook. People interact with the page, they search on the page, they buy the product. Amazon's algorithms are like, hey, something's going on here. People are really interested in this product, and they're actually interacting with the detail page, and now they're purchasing it. Let's go ahead and continue to surface this in higher organic search results because it's relevant to the consumer. We have a brand that we work with that was a zero start on Amazon, so they had just started on Amazon. And I went to them and said, and they were a little like, hey, we're not really seeing the traffic and the sales that we thought. And I said, okay, cool. Are you willing to talk about some outside the box strategies? And she said, absolutely. What do you have in mind? I said, you have 4 million followers on Facebook. Will you run ads from your Facebook pages to your detail pages? And she was like, sure. And so we were able to look at that and say, okay, you're going to get X percentage of increase in traffic, so you should be seeing Y percentage in sales. So we were able to build an inventory strategy around that to support it. And then sure enough, it goes from here, spike because it sells, and then the promotion drops, and then it dips a little bit, but instead of coming back to the previous floor, it has a new floor that's established. It's often what you see it happens in Q4. You have this massive amount of sales in Q4, and then your January year over year is better because of that increase in sales, that halo effect. So using those tools, and think of them just as that, they're tools. Like, how do I spike this? And if you don't have access to those tools, you have limited amount of resources to impact traffic. The other aspect about traffic strategies, have specific ASIN strategies. So don't look at it as like, I'm going to run ads for my account to get traffic to my account or to my brand. Do it specific to an ASIN. I want to drive this ASIN and increase traffic by this percentage. Or if you have a large catalog, do it from a subcategory. Get it to a place where it's manageable. The fourth aspect is sales strategy. So taking a look at your business and having a realistic sales goal. And what I mean by that is, how is your performance measured against the category? And so what I'm talking about here is oftentimes you'll see categories growing significantly. And like grocery is a great example. That category is continuing to outpace other categories. A big driver behind that is shift in consumer behavior, where they're being more confident and comfortable purchasing groceries online. So if you're in the grocery category and your sales are up, 20%, the category itself is up about 60%. So really, I would say that your brand is behind. Even though your business is up, the organic growth of the category is growing so much that you should be up here. So understanding the performance of your business against the category is really important so that you can level set that. Take advantage of the organic, but also understand which levers you're pulling to drive the traffic to get that sales boost. Again, it's kind of, I'm repeating myself a lot here, but know exactly which ASINs are going to drive which sales. So at Amazon, my team had a specific goal of reaching, a significant amount of money, 100 million in GMV for the year, and we would literally break it down to, we know which sellers and which ASINs in their catalog are going to contribute to that overall sales performance, and getting it down to that level so you understand how that impacts your business. The aspect of that that's really important is, what happens if something happens to that ASIN? And that's a key thing we'll talk about a little bit in a minute. So that sales strategy should be around X percentage of increased traffic will result in Y percentage of increase in sales. Improved sales conversion will result in Y percent of increased sales also. So those are the two factors that you're really going to be playing into there. The fifth aspect of that e-com readiness, that Amazon readiness, is the Amazon programs. And I think it's really important. Majority of the people in here are dependent upon Seller Central. I think the one thing that we can all agree on is that Amazon is going to continue to change. What's working today, what's successful today, may not be working or successful next year. And I think it's important to recognize some of the writing on the wall in terms of the direction that Amazon's going and how that could impact a seller-central business. First of all, on that is Amazon's brick and mortar expansion. This is happening, it's going to happen. Walmart is gaining share on e-commerce on Amazon. Target has launched its own marketplace. The click and collect aspect of purchasing products, where you click and buy it online and then a few minutes later you get a text message from Amazon or Walmart that your product can pick it up like right now, is growing significantly. 80% of the country, I'm getting these numbers wrong, but you'll get my point in a second. 80% of the country lives within like 10 minutes of a Walmart. So they have a massive footprint. And they have the ability to take share from Amazon in that e-commerce space if they could get their catalog right, they get the catalog selection right, they get the customer experience right. And so Amazon is pivoting to be able to compete against that. One of the big things that they did was launch one-day Prime shipping. So now all Prime members have access to that one-day shipping. That's a direct response from that click and collect, same-day delivery that Target and Walmart can do because they have all of those brick and mortar locations. Amazon's launching their Go stores. So supposedly there's about 3,000 Go stores coming. So you have to ask yourself, how do you as a seller-central seller, how is your product going to be positioned in a Go store? And if that consumer shifts from buying online to buying out from an app, from a Go store where they can just walk in and physically get it. They have 4-star, Whole Foods. So you want to be looking at this from a perspective of like, this is how your business is today. This is not how your business is going to be in a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now. And you have to be able to pivot to that. The other aspect, Prime Now, becoming more and more important. So how do you get your program, your products into those programs? International marketplaces, I think a number of you are doing that. Those continue to be important. So look at those. But then ask yourself, though, gut check, you've got your strategy. Is this just a distraction? Is it a shiny object? And Jeff mentioned, like, one of the hardest parts is saying no. So find your core, find your strategy, and say no if it doesn't work with it. Australia was one of those things, right? Launching on Canada was a big deal. I remember on that team, and everyone's like, yeah, Canada, Canada, Canada. And we're like, it has 1/10 the population of the US. Okay, good luck with that. So those programs. So e-com, readiness, those 5 steps, vital to a key strategy, which hopefully today, the rest of the day, you're going to get enough information where you're going to be able to think differently about your business. So you establish a strategy. The next thing is how do you know if it's working? How do you audit your own business? It's really tough, I think, because it's hard because you have so many different facets of what you're auditing now. You've got advertising, you've got logistics, keeping inventory in stock, you've got account health, policies, all of those sorts of things. So at the core of what Amazon does every single day is one thing, and that's the data. And this is a quote directly from the management handbook that I was given when I started at Amazon. Data should be the backbone of every decision you make. And that was really hard for me because at Amazon, I had previous success, and a lot of it was just really understanding brands from a gut perspective, right? I could look at a brand and I could say, that brand resonates, it's good, it's got this kind of it's gonna do sales, it's gonna do great. And it only took a couple of times for me to get called to the table in a weekly business review where the data didn't support my gut. Anyone run your business from your gut? Or have before? No one wants to raise their hand because no one wants to admit that they actually do, but I have. I ran my seller account for the first 2 years straight from my gut. It's like, this is a great product. Let's do it. This looks cool. Let's sell it, right? No. Data has to be the backbone of every decision you make. And at Amazon, there's a thing which I affectionately refer to as the dreaded WBR, the weekly business review. And this is something that if you don't have in your Amazon business, you need to. You need to have some system in place that is a weekly business review. You need to know what's going on with your business on a week-over-week basis. You can get into the weeds daily, it's going to be really challenging, But you need to know what's going on week over week, month over month, quarter over quarter, because you're going to go like this, hopefully, where that trajectory is going to, increase, but you're going to have days where you're down, you've got holidays, you've got natural disasters, all those sorts of things that are going to impact your business. But you need to be able to look at it and have that weekly business review. And the data doesn't lie. So think about that. Let it sit in for a second and ask yourself, how are you looking at your business? I was talking to Nick last night, and I was like, what's your conversion rate? He's like, I don't know. And I mean, like, I would be able to tell you, I can tell you what the conversion rate is on the majority of the ASINs in my account. I can tell you what the traffic is. I can tell you how they're performing week over week. So figure out how that is. The other aspect of it is make it simple. Figure out what your strategy is. Figure out how you're doing in terms of your performance to goal. Have what we would call movers and shakers. So the movers are good, going up. The shakers are bad. So if your business is down, you should be able to look in and know exactly which ASINs are driving the decrease. And then you should know how to solve for that. If they're good, you should be able to look at it and see these ASINs are driving the sales increases, and you should be able to replicate that. And then have it simplified. 3 colors. It's either red, yellow, or green. And at Amazon, if you're yellow or red, which most of the time we would always be asked, what's your path to green? What's your path to green? It's very direct. And you need to be asking yourself that, what's my path to green? And you should be able to say, my path to green is driving X amount of traffic to this percentage of my catalog and increasing conversion by optimizing my content 20%, which is my path to green. You should be able to get down to the ASIN level and understand exactly how much money is going to come from that ASIN to get you to your goal. And you know that and you can work backwards from it. If you know your goal is 1.5 million from one, you should be able to know exactly which ASINs are going to contribute that sale. And then you should be able to have a position on what happens if something happens to those ASINs so that you can make up for it. So create a WBR. So in Seller Central, the key data that you want to be looking at is your detailed page sales and traffic by child ASIN. That report's gold. Tells you your sessions. Sessions is your traffic to your ASIN. You've got page views. So sessions is the unique IP address. Page views is somebody going back to it. They're on their page. They're like, I can't really decide. What do I want to do? Conversion, buy box percentage. Those are important aspects of it. Really important, because if you're a private label seller, you think, oh, I don't need to pay attention to my buy box. You absolutely do. You just need to have a check in there to make sure that your buy box percentage is in that 95 to 100% range, and ideally 100. Sometimes weird things happen. They'll remove the buy box. But if all of a sudden, you don't have a way of checking it, and you have a reseller that's popped up on your listing, and your buy box has dropped to 50, you're going to see a decrease in sales. Account health, inventory health, these are no-brainers. I'm not talking about them. If you don't have a full good handle on your account health, don't eat lunch today. Go get a handle on your account health, because Amazon will pull the plug on your business in a heartbeat. And then there's new reporting coming. So, and a lot of this I think is going to be tied directly to your IP. So recognize that. IP, new reporting. New reporting like basket size, demographics, things like that could be pretty cool. Vendor Central, so it's important to recognize there's a couple aspects. There's ARA, Amazon Retail Analytics, and there's ARA Premium. If you have the ability to get ARA Premium, it's expensive, but it's a game changer. It's worth it. It gives you so much information. It gives you demographic information. It gives you location information. So it's really, really important from that perspective. The 3 primary metrics that I would be really paying attention to, and anybody who's also selling on Vendor Central and Seller Central, these are the 3 metrics that the Amazon leadership, first of all, if you're selling Amazon, Seller Central, and Vendor Central, it's a policy violation, just heads up. If you want me to send you the link to the language, just ping me and I'll show it and we can talk about it later. The key thing here though is lost buy box. So Amazon issues you a purchase order, they just bought hundreds of thousands, hopefully millions of dollars of product, and now they're losing the buy box to you. So senior leadership's going to get that report. It's going to be red, yellow, or green, and they're going to be looking at it like, why are we losing the buy box? That trickles down to this net PPM, pure profit margin. So now they're not making any money, And then they're going to come back, they're going to see this, and they're going to say, oh, we're losing the buy box to you, we're not making any more money, so we're going to crap out the ASIN, can't realize a profit, meaning we're not going to buy it anymore, and oh, by the way, I think we'll suspend your selling account because you violated these policies. All of this stuff happens. So it's important to understand that these are the key metrics that they're looking at. And then rep out of stock, replenishable out of stock. This is an important metric because you want to make sure that that product is kept in stock, and through that program, it's fast-tracked. Fast-tracked means, and this is the best possible thing for your product, it means that Amazon has the ability to recognize where the product is in their inventory and how fast it will get to the consumer. Do you ever see on a detail page it says like, this product, purchase this product in the next hour and 15 minutes and it will get to you on Monday? And then you see detail pages that don't have that, so it's not in that fast track. I have 10 minutes. Okay, thank you. I think I'm almost done. So those are the aspects of it from Vendor Central that I would be paying close attention to. Blind spots. It's important to recognize that they're all there. First is access to data. You have limited data views through Seller Central. You have limited data views through Vendor Central. So a lot of brands will sign up for both because they want to get that data. They did that a lot through Vendor Express, which Vendor Express is no longer around. Another blind spot is, what are the Vendor Central changes coming this year? So I've heard from a lot of people at Amazon, off the record, that there are significant changes coming in terms of those that are selling both Vendor Central and Seller Central. So I would anticipate that if your business is not at a particular threshold, like close to 10 million in Vendor Central, you may be asked to stop and go to Seller Central. So one of the things that you want to do is look at that. It's not necessarily a bad thing unless you're looking at the price pack architecture of your product and you can't make profit through Seller Central because of the FBA fees. A blind spot around lost buy box and decreased net profit. Again, it will result in Amazon not allowing you to advertise, which a core portion of today is just, hours are going to be spent on advertising, so you need to recognize that. The last thing you want is to be told that you can't run advertising on it anymore. And then the other aspect that you hear a lot of Amazon experts talking about is hybrid, which is that Vendor Central, Seller Central thing, and that is not a strategy, not at all. And that's something that if you are in this hybrid kind of mode, you need to stop and think about that and really pivot your business. So, today, I have some parting thoughts. Ask yourself, what would happen to my business, as my 7-year-old says, if occurred? And take a second and think about that. Ask yourself, what would happen if my top 20% of my ASINs were suspended, or there was a strike at the dock and it was sitting on the, in the container and you couldn't get to it? Competition came in, some sort of black hat tactic. Get granular with your ASINs and ask yourself, what would happen if this occurred? And then ask yourself, would the strategy that I have today be able to support the disruption? So we had a number of brands, we manage both Vendor Central and Seller Central. We had a number of brands who woke up that Monday morning with no POs and the email that said, thanks for being in Vendor Central, we're no longer going to buy from you anymore. And so of course I had text messages like, what WTF, what am I going to do, this sort of thing. And I was like, let's just take a second here. I think you got this. And we were able to show, you have 9 weeks of inventory coverage, and it's not going to take you 9 weeks to light up a Seller Central account and get your inventory in there. And then you can slowly phase it out and phase it in. And so the fact that we had that contingency plan for that the plug being pulled on their Vendor Central account was not a big deal. And then you have to ask yourself, though, do you have the right data in order to respond accordingly? So in this case, we did. We had the weeks of coverage. We knew how long it would take for us to get a Seller Central account. We knew how long it would take to get a shipment in. So it wasn't going to disrupt the business at all. And so these are 3 things that I think you need to take today as all of these other presentations are happening and incorporate them. Remember the shiny object, there's going to be some really, really good gold nuggets here. It may not work with your strategy. Take it, write it down, table it, and focus on it. And make sure you have that core strategy so you can support it. And then that is that. Thank you very much. I'm sincere. Feel free to email me. I'd love to talk with you. Appreciate it.
So we have a couple of minutes.
Yes, sir.
Peter is going to be part of the panel talking specifically about traffic later. So any traffic related questions we'll hold off on. But does anybody have a question? I saw See, this is where I get my steps in. I saw your hand go up earlier.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Question on the hybrid approach. So
Yes.
you said that isn't a long-term strategy.
Right.
Outside of potentially getting shut down and Amazon saying you can't do both,
Yeah.
what are some other disadvantages of doing both?
So, yeah, that's a challenging question. I mean, so it's interesting because things have changed so much. When I left Amazon, I was all about like, you shouldn't be doing Amazon scale, you should be doing only 3P. And then there was this like, you should be doing hybrid. And I really feel like the direction that things are going now is you need to embrace what you have. If you're selling through Vendor Central, you need to optimize that to a degree that makes it so that it's really working for you. If you're selling through Seller Central, you need to do the same thing. And it all needs to come down to profitability. So look at the business from a profit perspective, and can you make more profit? Like if you're in grocery, you're gonna make more profit selling through Vendor Central, period. Because I mean, no one's gonna spend $10 on a bottle of pasta or a jar of pasta sauce that they can get at the grocery store for $3 because you gotta increase your price to absorb that. So if you're looking at it, I don't really see a benefit in having both. First, it's a policy violation, and I think it's important to recognize, like, I don't have data and I don't have, anecdotal information, but I think that the policy violation aspect of it is bigger than, it's just because because Amazon doesn't like it. I think it has more to do with potential, and I hate to throw this word out there, but potential, oh my gosh, I can't believe it, conflict of interest, yeah, and more about Amazon being forced to break off a portion of their business. Because if you're selling yourself and Amazon is selling...
You mean antitrust.
Thank you.
Yeah, I got you.
Then there's the potential for some kind of, and I'm sorry, I'm going to use this word, collusion. Yeah. But there is.
I knew it was going to come up at some point.
Yeah. And price fixing. And I think that, with today's politics, I'm not going down that path, but the reality of it is Amazon is so powerful. It's half of e-commerce in the US. And so if you're selling and Amazon's buying from you, you could somehow manipulate that in a degree that could then, control the price on it. And that's where I think that hybrid, because what I've been told is a very, very stern, there will be no hybrid at the end of the year. You will be one or the other.
Is anybody in the room hybrid?
Yeah, there's a few people.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Great.
And I think that from a perspective of, do you continue the hybrid, get in front of that now. Look at it from a profit perspective.
And it's not necessarily about stopping the hybrid.
No.
It's about having the plan if you have to stop the hybrid.
Yeah.
Right? That's what I think the presentation. I think we have time for one more question. Go with Jerry here in the front, and then we'll wrap up.
This is a little minutia question, but with the one-day Prime coming into play, how's that going to impact Seller Fulfilled Prime and some of their other?
It's a good question. I mean, I would assume that you're going to have to meet the same metrics. I don't know the nuances of it. It might be why they, it's a wait list to get in the program now. So.
Did you have one more?
I just had a comment on that.
Oh,
Do you have the answer? Nice.
So I heard that you're going to have a 6-week minimum inventory
Sure, that would make
capacity
sense.
for.
Yeah.
That's all I know.
Can I point out one thing that's really important? I've been
great example of why you guys need to talk to each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Don't be afraid to talk about your business with the other people in your business.
Actually, you know what? Everybody I talked to last night shared what they were doing.
Yeah.
Like a lot of times you go to conferences like, I sell in home.
Yeah.
Why do you want to know? Why do you want to know what kind of product I sell?
Yeah.
Like I'm not planning to start selling coffee anytime soon. So knowing what Death Wish does isn't, and I don't think you guys are scared. Yeah. I mean, I've talked to Mike about it. He's like, I don't care. People know what we do. Good luck. I mean, if you've got a brand. So one final takeaway from Peter's presentation, and you guys are going to get a copy of the slides. You're going to get video from this presentation and all of them. You'll also get his presentation from previous years. We open up the videos and we'll share them. Last year, he went heavy into depth into how to build that red light, green light, yellow light strategy.
2 years ago.
2 years ago, yeah. So we can share that. We can share that video. with you, and you guys can find. Caroline's shaking her head at me. She's just like, I'm happy I heard what he promised, because it's great. It's great in depth into that, and I think the big kicker that I took away from one of Peter's earlier presentations was, if your goal is to be a $10 million company this year, stop thinking of yourself as a $2 million company trying to grow to 10, and start thinking of yourself as a $10 million company.
That's underperforming.
Okay, so think of it like that's the parting thought.
You have an $8 million delta. How are you going to close it?
That's your goal. You guys set a goal for the year. You're underperforming right now. How are you going to fix that? So thank you, Peter.
Yep.
We're going to take a break. If anybody is interested in shooting video, see Caroline in the back. We are ready to take somebody up if somebody's ready. And we'll be back here in 15 minutes. The snack table has a bunch of snacks and stuff for you. Bathrooms are across the hall. See you in 15.